All right, we're back here on the Big Blue Report. My name is Randy Zellea from Back Sports Page, and thank you for making us a part of your week, as you always do. With me always is the two-time Super Bowl champion, New England Patriots, New Orleans Saints, and the the captain of the defense of the New York Football Giants, Jonathan Casillas. And as always, Big Daddy D, Ryan Darlington, is in the house, live from Colorado, baby.
Beautiful Colorado.
Beautiful Colorado. There's where the air is. What's the old expression? The air is thin out there.
Yeah, it sure is. And believe me, my weight and lack of cardiovascular fitness are making sure I'm aware of how thin the air is up here. I like walk up the stairs and I'm like, but it's good. I'm all good. I'm here visiting my folks. My son's with me, so it's been a great time. It's beautiful out here. So having fun, but I'm really looking forward to talking some Giants football with you today.
Yeah, we took last week off for the holidays, and we have New Year's coming up, but also the biggest game the Giants have had for a long time, a playoff berth on the line. Guys, we haven't talked since before the Washington game, and when they came up with a big win and almost stole one in Minnesota, which the three of us were sitting there saying they're going to get crushed in Minnesota, and believe it or not, they were right there. So, JC, I start with you. Your takeaway of the last 2 weeks.
Well, I think number one, the Commanders game, that was a huge game for the Giants. And when you're playing this late and you haven't secured a playoff spot quite yet, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes on, until you actually do clinch that playoff spot and you're safe, or you're not playing for anything that has ramifications in the playoffs, which I don't think that's going to apply to the Giants this year. Maybe it will week 18, if they don't get this win this week. But huge win against the Commanders. I think that the Giants beat them at their own game. That's a very physical team that can run the football. I think the Giants did that pretty efficiently against them. And then last week, it's not, I don't give trophies out, congratulatory trophies and participation trophies. But if you want to give the Giants, okay, at least a consideration of, hey, you can compete with the top dogs in the NFL, for 4 quarters. I think you can go ahead and tip your hat to the Giants because that's exactly what they did. I think they did a good job on Justin Jefferson for most of the game. Mm-hmm. And then, the best player on the field, who is Justin Jefferson, just basically took over at the end of the game. And it was just a little too much to handle for the Giants. And, I've spoken about this, especially recently, that's the key to the NFL. You got to have one of those guys who just unguardable, like a LeBron James or like a Kevin Durant in the NBA. It's like no matter what you do to them, they're just unguardable, and they're going to be able to get what they need to get when they want to get it. You know what I mean? And that's just who Justin Jefferson is. But with that all being said, the Giants turned the ball over multiple times, a lot of late drop passes. The block punt was the worst timing to have a block punt, and that's been the woes of the Giants throughout the year. It's like special teams has not been a part of their complementary football. It's been only offensive defense. Special team hasn't really done too much besides that block punt a couple of weeks ago. And I feel like if they don't improve that, they don't get this checked, Indianapolis, without scoring a point on offense, can beat the Giants because defensively they score and special teams they score. We've seen that from them in the last month. They can do that. And if the Giants don't tighten that up, the Giants can lose on defense and special teams alone because at the end of the day, the Colts are horrible on offense, bro. They're terrible for sure.
Yep.
Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I really loved watching what we were able to do in the Commanders game because I do think that we went toe-to-toe with them. JC, your point about beating them at their own game is exactly right. I think I saw a return to the kind of smash mouth football, run it down their throats as often as you can kind of mentality. And that new blocking scheme that they kind of, I don't know if it's a new blocking scheme, but it's the one that they unveiled late in the game when there were three runs of, what was it, 15, 13, and 19 or something like that. And all it was a doubled up wedge zone blocking scheme that worked. And it just worked, and it worked, and it worked, and they kept hitting it until it didn't work anymore. And that's what ended up kind of cinching the game, sealing the deal for us. And I was also really impressed when, in watching that Vikings game, watching us go toe-to-toe. with one of the best teams in the NFL. I mean, if you think about it, it's 11-3 team when we were going up against them, and we went toe to toe with those guys in their house.
And they only had one
just
loss at home at that point too, Ryan.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, look, you're right. No moral victories, but you know, it reminded me of the season when, you know, the last game of the season, we played the Patriots and we lost, right? But it catapulted us. We went toe to toe with the best team in the NFL.
I was going to bring that up.
Catapulted us to a good, you know, into the playoffs and through a pretty good playoff run, which ended very well. So I mean, I like the idea that you know, putting up what we can and playing like to your point, JC, playing complementary football where we actually did have pretty decent defensive play calling and offensive play calling, and things seemed to work. We said before the game with the Commanders, and it was going to be the same for the Vikings as well, that each position was going to have to play their hearts out. They were going to have great games, and they did. I mean, they ended up with a loss, but it was a 61-yard field goal, guy's career best, you know, that got us the loss. And, you know, it was just one of those goddamn, you know, kind of moments. But listen, we went toe to toe with one of the best teams in the NFL, and I'm excited to see what we can do against an offense that is struggling quite a bit.
Oh, and let's give our flowers to my boy Kayvon Thibodeau, who had his coming out party versus the Commanders.
Prime time.
Who just absolutely balled.
Yeah, he dominated.
You know, on the main stage. And you know, he's a guy who I don't feel like is in shape enough to play 90% of the snaps, but for whatever 50-60% of the snaps that you get from him, oh man, they're good, man. That guy's playing some good football right now, and I've been saying it for a while. The Giants defensive line got to be the ones that step up to make the plays, because those are the guys that are most talented. Those are the guys that are the high draft picks, and those are the guys that are basically paid the most money on the team. So they should do what they're supposed to do, because that's what the Giants are. The Giants have always been a defensive line-led franchise. That's how they always been. That's how they had their success. Even when Lawrence Taylor were playing, there's a lot of great defensive linemen. Lawrence Taylor was a defensive lineman. They call him a linebacker, but he was on the line of scrimmage rushing that passer all the time. And that's what you saw from Kayvon Thibodeau and the group in front of linebackers.
And one of the things too is when I spoke to the linebackers coach of the Giants last week, one of the things that he stated about Kayvon is he felt when Kayvon came back from his injury, he was very timid. And he said it was only going to be a matter of time until he figured out his footing. And now he was able to, now he can start really seeing what he can bring to the table. And he said the only frustration he had was not enough time on the field with Kayvon, Dexter, and Leonard, because it just seems like all three of those guys not been on the field together all at the same time. They need to have more time together to sort of figure out who's doing where, who's going where, what spacing, and so on and so forth. But one of the things, though, we're like a few minutes into the show and we haven't discussed, in the last two games, Daniel Jones has played solid football. And the same thing with Saquon Barkley. I feel, because over the last few weeks, it always felt like they went to Saquon early and then sort of fell away from him. And I felt like the game against Minnesota, you got a healthy dose of Saquon, including that last touchdown, which, by the way, very ballsy 4th and 2 call right there by Dable. Again, maybe Dable had an out of game experience in the game they tied, and when he didn't go for it on 4th and 3, you know what I mean? But Daniel played extremely well, and we have an interesting topic with Daniel in a little bit. But one of the things I really, really felt with Minnesota too is they are just like the Giants, involved in so many one-score games this season. You know, that was one of the things they kept on bringing in during the broadcast. So it had the possibility of being a close games. But I was listening to JC talk during the pregame with Lance Meadow, which, by the way, every Giants home game pregame show, don't forget to listen to JC and Lance Meadow. Hashtag shameless plug. And so with that being said, but JC brought it up, is if Minnesota gives you an inch and have the opportunity to possibly close the door, you have to do it. You have to do it. And you only have so many opportunities in this league to possibly strike and possibly pull ahead and close the door on someone. They did it against Washington, and they were so close to do it on Minnesota's home field. It took a 61-yard field goal, and the closest thing that I was able to compare this to, and JC, you were playing at that time, is the Giants were 0-2 in 2017, and you guys went into Philadelphia, and you guys lost that game on, I think it was like a 60-yard field goal from Philly.
Yep.
And that was a similar feeling where they're saying, well, let's prepare for overtime because he's not hitting that, and all of a sudden he hits it, and you're just like, wow, all right, well, yeah, there was at that point when there's that kick there, you can always look back at the mistakes that are made during the game, but in that moment there was nothing else that you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
And JC, maybe you can. I know I'm not trying to bring up a bad memory for you, but what do you remember about a situation like that when you have someone who's kicking a field goal that's 60 yards, which it's not. It's not easy.
Yeah, that's when you get to the point of the game where you just close your eyes and talk to whoever you need to talk to, whether it's God, your late uncle or whoever it is that you pray to, and that's what you do because it's out of your hands and there's really nothing you can do. And look, man, he hit a tremendous kick. We're talking about the Minnesota kicker. That's a career long. It's beyond the scope of a normal kick. Normal long kicks are in the 50s. Over 60, that's like okay. That's like shooting, a shot from the other free throw line. That's how far that type of kick is. And he ended up hitting it, and it was very heartbreaking because I think the Giants were in the game. I don't want to compare it to 2017 because we weren't this good in 2017. 2016 we were pretty good, but 2017, we weren't that good. We lost a lot of games that year, and this team is a lot different. I feel like this team is mentally tougher than we were in 2017. And I feel like they know how to put drives together, and I think the lack of that deep threat dog that we've been talking about, the lack thereof of that puts a lot on Saquon and Daniel Jones. And they have risen to the occasion, especially the last couple of weeks. Daniel Jones was a pedestrian performance against the Commanders, but Saquon had a really good game. And then also he didn't get sacked. So that means the offensive line did a pretty good job, right?
Right.
And then you look at the Minnesota Vikings game and you look at Daniel Jones' overall performance. He had 334 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, which he tells you he threw a bad pass.
Yep.
And you know why? Because he has to throw perfect passes to these receivers.
Yeah.
And yes, Patrick Peterson was on him.
Yeah.
But Isaiah Hodgins did a great job on Patrick Peterson all night. He was winning against him all night. But this is the thing. They are not good enough if Daniel Jones is not perfect.
Yeah.
And he literally, the pass to Isaiah Hodgins on the sideline, perfect ball, perfectly thrown ball, right into his hands. The pass thrown to Richie James, or on the sideline again, perfectly thrown ball, right? And then you look at the pass that Richie James dropped, a little bit behind him. A really good receiver would have caught that ball. Yeah. Justin Jefferson is not dropping that pass. That's just what it is. So Daniel Jones, and the more and more I see him, Randy, and I look at other quarterbacks like a Herbert and a Josh Allen, and look, I would take Josh Allen, over probably anybody else in the league. But when I watch those guys play and I see how reckless they are with the football in their hands, yes, they can do outstanding things and create outstanding plays with their legs, and their arms are amazing arm talent, but they fumble the ball, they throw interceptions, and that puts their team into a tough spot at times. That's what Daniel Jones hasn't done that much of this year. Yeah. And that's why I think Daniel Jones is the guy in New York. He's going to be the guy in the future. And if you get a dog at wide receiver, that will elevate this entire team. Take Justin Jefferson off the Vikings. They don't break 500 this year. They lose at least 8 of those, I think 11 games now that they won with the 1 point, with the 1 score differential. They lose 8 of those games, bro. They lost definitely to New York last week, because if it wasn't for Justin Jefferson, they lost that game. But that's where the Giants need to, I think, focus on moving forward. And I'm not talking about, no offense to my boy Odell, not Odell right now in 2022. Odell in 2016, absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
But there's a guy playing in Vegas right now who his best friend, who the guy he went to the team to play for, just got benched, and I don't think he's happy. And I tell you what, if the Giants can go ahead and sell half the franchise to get Devontae Adams, then do it, because that will equal a lot of wins.
I
A lot of wins.
I agree with you on that. And one thing, and Ryan, I'll get to you in 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
One other thing with the game against Minnesota too is I with Daniel especially. You talk about the same passes where he almost has to be perfect, where the interceptions that he has, these are the same ones that we used to get on Eli Manning about too. Okay. The only difference with Daniel's, the criticism that Daniel's getting right now is because he's not Eli Manning. Eli Manning is a very, very, very tough act to follow. And that's maybe one of the reasons why I've been so tough on him too. It's because there's been a lot of times where Eli was not elite. Eli played, some bad football and turned the ball over a lot.
Mhm.
But because of the success he had and the longevity he had, it's like when Johnny Carson stepped down from the Tonight Show the first time. The guy who tried to replace him, it wasn't Johnny Carson, and they ended up bringing Johnny Carson back. It took the next guy after that to be able to take the mantle. So Eli Manning is a tough act to follow, and
Big
so
shoes
that's
to fill.
very
shoes
big.
to fill. But it's because there's 2 Super Bowls and an MVP. If you think about the kind of play that you would watch Eli Manning make, right? When he missed high, right? He'd sail the ball, right? And he would do it with a lot more frequency than I see Daniel Jones sailing the ball, missing high. You know what I mean? So over the past, we've been talking just over the past couple of games. I've been a Daniel Jones fan for quite a while now, and he's been more accurate than Eli was. He's been more effective in the run game than Eli was. This last season, it's been an evaluation, and the evaluation has come back quite well.
Yes.
Right. He's careful with the ball. He doesn't have huge stats, but again, we don't have a huge receiver and we don't have a huge offensive line. So given the talent that he has, if we're able to elevate that, then his numbers go through the roof. And I absolutely think that we should be definitely signing him up long term.
Right. And JC, I promise I'll let you finish this off, this part of it off. And I think Daniel has, like you said, risen to the challenge, and he's done an excellent job. And he's stuck in a situation that guys like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Eli had to do. Sometimes you don't have the name receivers. You have to raise the level. If the great guys always raise the level of the guys around you, and sometimes you make receivers. We didn't hear of Hakeem Nicks and Victor Cruz. It was Eli Manning who helped make those guys. Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne, Peyton helped raise those guys. Tom Brady had a bunch of guys that he helped raise. So, right now, Daniel Jones is doing the best he can with what he's got, and he also has handcuffs on him because Dable knows what he has out in the field, and so he's trying to limit what Daniel is doing out there. But you can't have you can't have the defense out there for majority of the game. You just can't, because eventually it's going to wear down the defense.
You're absolutely right. But I think to your point, he's making Isaiah Hodgins.
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
He's making Richie James. You know what I mean? He's not doing a whole lot for Slayton because we kind of knew what we had there, and we're making use of him as much as we can.
And funny thing too is I don't know if you listened to the interview I did with Davis Webb yet, but when I interviewed Davis Webb, when we discussed the comparison with Daniel Jones and Eli, he calls Daniel little Eli because he has all the same mannerisms, he has all the same study habits, because obviously Eli mentored him, and that's the only thing Daniel knows is what Eli did, was because that's who he learned from. Because I'm not going to lie to you, coming out of Duke, unless you're 6'10" and can dunk a basketball, those are the athletes that usually go professional out of Duke. The basketball program does. There's not many Duke football players who are saying, that's right, there he is at a Duke University. You're not used to hearing that on the football
They're calling
field.
Krzyzewski coach.
Exactly. Exactly.
100%.
So,
well, look, I heard this stat earlier, and I had to check it, but it's true. Daniel Jones is only one of 3 quarterbacks that has over 3,000 passing yards and over 600 rushing yards. You know who the other 2 quarterbacks are?
It's got to be Mahomes and Allen. No,
I want to hear this.
Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen.
Wow,
really?
Jalen.
That is the company that Daniel Jones is in. Now, his passing yards, there's a gap between, I think he's number 11 overall in total yards, combined rushing and passing, and there's a gap between him and 10th place. But let's be honest about this. He's, I think, tied for the least amount of interceptions in the league.
Yep.
You know, and then you look at other guys like a Josh Allen who is throwing a lot of interceptions. Kirk Cousins has thrown a lot of interceptions. So he's not putting the Giants in bad situations like some of these top tier quarterbacks has done. And sometimes, like Herbert, on a consistent basis, you know, where he throws multiple interceptions in one game and turn the ball over multiple times, which Daniel Jones has done in the past. And that allows you to have an opportunity to score points and kick a 55-yard field goal like Gano has done, right? Yeah. Gano is what, 8 of 9 or 9 of 10 from over 50 this year.
Over 50. Yeah.
But that's because the
Unreal.
Giants, they don't have the most amazing offense in the world, but they have an efficient offense that gets the job done, need to get done. And they're 8-2-1 in one-score games. That's a great record in one-score games. Not as good as Minnesota, but Minnesota's number one all time in one-score games this year. So they're an anomaly. But like I said, they have a guy out there who's competing for the MVP, and he doesn't play quarterback. That's how good that guy is, right? The Giants don't have a guy like that. So I've been saying it for the last few weeks. I think Daniel Jones is a stud, and I think he as right now has the ability to not only stretch the ball and throw a perfect deep ball to some of these mid-level receivers. I'm not going to try to play them at all. Mid-level receivers, but then also be pinpoint accurate with the hardest throws in the game. The hardest throws as a quarterback are those crossing routes and those dig routes that require you to throw it in a certain window at a certain time, at a certain velocity, in a certain spot. That is very difficult to do.
Yeah. Knowing that the DB is going to be draped all over. You can throw it
all day long and just throw it up in the air and have your receiver time it. That's actually an easy pass to throw, i.e. Russell Wilson, right? Yeah. But when you sit in the pocket and you have to sit there and you see a lot of defenders back there, 6, 7 defenders around, and you got 3 or 4 wide receivers that you got to fit in certain windows, that is a difficult pass to do. And Daniel Jones thrives in that.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been seeing from him this year. I've been seeing a lot of that, a lot of accuracy over the middle. He was 71% last week against Minnesota. He was 80% in a tie versus the Commanders for a completion percentage, you know? So he's doing it at a high clip. He's being, I feel like, consistent this year. I think the turnover was not, of course, it was not timely. No turnover is timely, you know, but it was a throw that was a half an inch off, a half an inch off. But that is how precise you need to be, especially when you're playing against guys like Patrick Peterson. And then this week, the corner that from the Colts, why is his name escaped me right now? Number 5, I just did Gilmore. Gilmore's one of those guys. If you're an inch off, and he's on your receiver's hip, he's gonna take that ball from you, because this is the level of play that I would expect from these playoff teams that the Giants hopefully make it to the playoffs, and that the playoffs that they are going to face. And that's what Daniel Jones, I feel like he's not going to do that anymore. I feel like Daniel Jones is a guy who looked at last year and said, man, I can't do some of those things that I did last year. And then even this year, when he was, he wasn't always great this year. He was bad at times. I feel like he's corrected so many problems. And now I just look at him like, man, like he's a composed quarterback. Yep. He's led the team in fourth quarter comebacks this year. Yep. Like he doesn't throw interceptions. When he scrambles, he's surprisingly fast. I had dinner with Calvin Shepard, linebacker coach for the Lions, before we played him. And I told him straight up, I said, man, Daniel Jones is a lot faster than you think, bro. He can run that football. I'm not telling you to do anything special. Don't do anything special. But he is a better athlete than you think. And when he tucks that ball, and you saw it last week, when he tucks that ball to run it, he covers ground very quickly.
Yeah, I have.
Sorry. Go ahead, Randy.
I have 2 questions for you guys involving Daniel Jones. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, Dable and Kafka and the rest of the offensive staff maybe put the handcuffs on Daniel a little bit this year to help work out some of the bad habits that he had? So
I think that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I think
exactly why they did it.
I think because that's what I was.
Himself,
yeah, exactly. Protect him from himself. So let's show the strengths let's hide the negatives and let's work on the negatives to get them back up to where your strengths are. And then now next year he'll get some more receiving help. Then it'll be a little bit different.
Well, and think about what the upside, think about the upside that represents, that idea represents. He's in his first season with Dable's system, which is admittedly extremely complicated.
Yes.
He's in a very complicated system with love him to death, but mid-tier receivers, right? And a line that can be patchy at times, right? And so at the end of the day, he does have some issues in terms of what he's able to do. But if you're able to get some of those receivers that are going to help stretch the field, if you're able to secure the line a little bit more, think about the upside that represents when you're talking about year 2 in Dable's system. Dable's system, I mean, he's at like 3rd grade in Dable's system, right?
Yep.
Next year,
Yep.
2nd year in the system, he's going to be like high school, right?
And third grade
year
math is
in
really
Dable's-
hard, Ryan. Just letting you know.
Really? Believe me, I know. I got to help Tuck with his, and I'm like, algebra at 6th grade. Fuck that. No, it's not.
If it's not, you can't do it on your fingers, baby. It ain't math. That's my
that's
rule.
why I got a fucking phone. I got a calculator right here. I'm not doing differential equations. Anyway, I digress. At the end of the day, what that means is 2nd year in the system with receiver help, it's going to open the book. It's going to be a lot more active. It's going to be a lot more creative, I think. And then even beyond that, if we're able to get a 3rd and 4th year out of it in the same system that's complex, and once he gets comfortable, I mean, we're talking an upside that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and then you look at the O-line play. I think the O-line has improved.
It has improved.
And,
Yep.
and you look at last week, I feel like the only guy that really struggled is the rookie who has a knee injury. Right. Let's just call it what it is. That's a fact. That's not subjective in any type of way. That's an objective statement that I just made. He is a rookie and he has a knee injury, and he's trying to play football against these professional guys who's been playing football for a very long. Zadarius Smith has been playing football for a very long time. He's been abusing right tackles, left tackles for a long time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that kid, Evan Neal, he's struggling right now. He struggled early in the season. He played decently at times this year, but he's struggling right now. But you know who else struggled? Andrew Thomas struggled his rookie year.
Yeah.
He struggled really bad his rookie year.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
To the point where they're calling him one of the best tackles in the game, if not the best tackle. So when you have a guy like that in your room, you elevate the play of all guys.
Yep.
And I think Andrew Thomas is a guy that'll bring Evan Neal around and be like, bro, I was just there not too long ago, bro. And you can improve. It may not be this year, given that he's possibly still dealing with this knee deal. When guys are on the ground a lot, which he was last week, that's either you can't play in this NFL, or something's wrong.
Yeah.
That's usually what it is. When I was hurt with lower body stuff, I would always be on the ground. Always be on the ground. I'm like, man, I feel off. I can't keep my balance. The game is all about balance. You're pushing and pulling against big, strong men all the time. And sometimes, right, they push you a little bit too far, you can lose balance. But most guys, they don't fall on the ground. The guys that fall on the ground, they don't stay in the league long. So I think he might be a little hurt still, dealing with that injury. But if you look at the rest of the offensive line, I think they have gelled together this year.
Yeah,
they have figured it out, because a lot of pressure is not really happening to Daniel Jones, not on a consistent basis. Yeah, they're giving up sacks. Yeah, but I think they're a lot better than they were earlier in the season.
Not like they were 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago.
And then you combine that, right, with Daniel Jones' pocket presence. The play, the touchdown he threw to Isaiah Hodgins, where he stepped up in the pocket and kind of went to the side.
Yep, just a little
bit.
bit.
A little extra time. Like, this is what I'm telling you, that. And then another play where he was getting sacked and he had the ball in his right hand, and the defender came and swiped at the ball and he switched it to his left hand.
Yep.
Little stuff like that. Fans don't really see it.
Mm-hmm.
I see it because I watch the game at least twice. Every single time the Giants play, I watch it at least twice. So when I look at it the second time, I'm not looking to get like a story or what I need to talk about. I'm looking at
details.
The play. I'm looking at it, and when I watch it the second time, I start seeing a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like, Daniel Jones, man, he's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good quarterback. And the Giants need to give him a little more support in terms of catching those passes when it come to you, defensively getting those stops when you need to do it. getting turnovers, creating turnovers, special teams protecting the ball, being penalty free, and not allowing big plays. And I feel like they have failed him in a lot of games this year, and I don't think Daniel Jones have failed anybody this year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He hasn't lost games for us.
Right.
Right. At the end of the day, when you're talking about, it's not him.
He hasn't won many games for us, but he also hasn't lost many games for us. There's a lot of different factors.
But he has won games for the Giants this year, Randy.
No, let me rephrase this. Okay. The last couple of games, as the season, in the beginning of the season, I think maybe we got up until maybe Seattle. You can make the argument that the Giants defense won a lot of those games. You're looking at Baltimore, you're looking at Tennessee. Daniel has, in my opinion, in the last two games, because those are the biggest two games of the season against the Commanders and the Vikings. Daniel changed my mind on how I felt about him over the last two. Just those two games. Up until that point. Game manager.
What you're trying to say is that, he's a contributor. He was a contributor, and he kept them in the games. He didn't lose the games, right? He was a game manager, and it was the defense keeping it close that allowed us to get a lot of those things when the we were talking about it like riding on a very fine line, and the way the ball bounces one way or the other, a lot of times it bounced our way because the defense kept us in, because he as a contributor kept us in. But you don't look at him in those games anyway, like a Josh Allen or like a Brett Favre of old.
Right.
You just say he put them on their backs and he was the reason that they won, stuff like that. But I mean, I'm seeing it more and more and more, especially over the course of the last 2 weeks, in the way he's playing, that he can be a guy that you can say, all right, we need you, right? We need you to go ahead and win this game for us. And he's proving that he can.
And not just myself, but there was a lot of other people who were seeing the same thing I was. We were not looking at all the things he was doing well. We were looking at the things that he wasn't doing. And then I sort of stepped back and I said, you know what? Let me try and look at this from different eyes. And these last two games, I really looked at it. I was like, he's doing everything he can with what he has around him. Yep. And my only complaint was over the last few weeks, up until the last 2 weeks, was the mishandling of where Saquon was and everything, because I felt Daniel was throwing the ball too much. And when you don't have a lot of guys to throw to, things become very, very limited, and you're not using your big gun. That's where I think there's a little bit of that criticism came in that I brought up about how he was throwing for 300 yards, but the more yards he was trying to pass for, they were losing. But now it was a different tone because Saquon was not being used heavily in the first half and not a lot in the second half. They've been trickling him in throughout the game. So he's been getting heavy loads in spurts, not on a consistent basis. I have to bring this up to you guys, man, because JC brought it up before. Out in Vegas, the Derek Carr situation. I think the three of us are pretty much on the same page that you should be committing to Daniel, not looking around. But you don't think they're going to flirt at all with this, right?
With who? Derek Carr?
Yeah, there was a whole.
Bro,
you should.
What?
I have this.
Oh yeah,
I have
there's
to.
a whole contingent.
First
I saw some articles.
Daniel Jones now is a better quarterback than Derek Carr.
Yeah,
I understand
right now,
that
for sure.
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you what I have been reading.
Sure.
Not only just on message boards, but articles that have gone up saying, "Will the Giants go after Derek?"
There's a guy in Vegas right now that the Giants should go after, and it's not
Derek Carr.
It's not him.
But I have to bring that up. I'm just telling you, I have to bring it up because it has been printed by my fellow moronic cohorts.
There's lots of hotties out there, man, and they want to talk to them all. You give a shot to each one of them, but you're only going to take one to the dance, right?
But the
I love that analogy.
You want to take the one that you can rely on, right? Not the one that's
sure
going to make you, not the one that's going to make you look bad. You know what I mean? And you got a guy who plays for the New York Football Giants, who has been there, 4 years, and who has seen, really bad football played from himself, and then also the Giants franchise and everybody else that's in it, right? But then you've also seen him, beat the Tennessee Titans in week 1, beat Baltimore, tie a Commanders team and then go ahead and beat them, right? You've seen them do that. And it was a collective effort, and it's led by one man. Look, Daniel Jones is the captain of this ship.
Yes.
He has full control of this team. He may not be the Russell Wilson. He might not have his own danger witch out there. You know what I'm saying? He may not have that, but he has the belief of the coaches, right? And when they talk about, people criticizing any player and their decision making and mistakes that they made, they don't talk about Daniel Jones.
Right.
You know, he's not that guy anymore. And I love the way he's playing right now, because I feel like if you do get some pieces around him and you do get that dog at receiver, Daniel Jones can throw for 4,000 yards.
Do some pretty
and
good
then
stuff.
also run for half a thousand at least.
And think about what that does. Think about what that does for Saquon's numbers too, right?
Yeah.
When you get that, and we've been talking about it for weeks, how the ability to stretch the field opens things up for Saquon. The reason he's had some struggles, and part of it, of course, is that he hasn't gotten the rock as much as maybe we think he should have. But it's because they've stacking 8 in the box. They know where we're going with the ball. They know who our dog is. They know who we're going to be handing it off to, and that makes for a very hard. That makes for very tough sledding unless you've got a superior blocking scheme. So, I mean, we've been talking about it for weeks. The ability to stretch the field makes everything better, makes everything easier, and everybody's numbers go up.
I think JC's going to show up to the media room on Sunday and go, "Where's that guy who wrote that about Derek Carr? Let me have a little talk with him.
We're going to have a chat.
Where is he?" Guys, so we have the Colts coming up this week.
Yeah.
And look, you can look at the Colts and just obviously their offensive situation at quarterback has been a disaster all year. It just seems like when the going gets tough for that team, that franchise just seems to struggle. It happened last year with Carson Wentz, and now it happened with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan sitting there going with Nick Foles. Still a solid special teams, still solid defensively. I'm going to get more of a handle of it tomorrow when I'm at the facility. But JC, you were there today. This team is laser focused on getting this win. Like, I think out of all the weeks we've gone through with this Giants franchise, and I don't want to say the Cinderella story, but this happy accident, as we like to call this year, with them most likely making the playoffs. This is the most focused, and it sounds like ready this team has been all year.
Yeah, and they need to be ready, because the team that they're playing this weekend, that's the team that blew it last year. You remember the Colts last year? They was able to punch their ticket in if they won in the last week of the season, and they shit down their leg. This is the team that did that last year. And the Giants, if they lose to the Colts, tough sledding for Philly against Philly, because Philly's still trying to fight for that number 1 spot. They haven't secured it yet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not going to be, we go into Philly and Philly's resting their starters. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Philly's going to give the Giants everything they got. And we know what happened a few weeks ago against Philadelphia. The Giants, if there's ever been a must win, and we say this every week, we say this every week. But like I said, Ryan, as the season progresses and you're making that playoff push, every game is more and more valuable and more critical. And this is by far the most. Yeah, last week meant a lot. Yeah, the Giants lost that game, and the Commanders, the game meant a lot too. But we saw that losing that game and other teams lost, it was like, okay, the Giants still have, their way to punch their own ticket in.
Yeah, right.
And if they don't do it this week, Randy, if they don't freaking beat the Colts, who last week, let me read off some numbers to you last week. No third down conversions.
None.
Against the Chargers, the Colts. 7 sacks, 3 interceptions, and only 10 first downs. That's the team that the Giants are playing.
That's
that was the worst stat line I think I've ever heard.
Like rough. I told that to Schmelke earlier. I said no third down conversions. He was like, "For real?" He had to look it up. He didn't believe it. He didn't believe it.
I think Brett's team can do better than that.
the Pee Wee League, the Munchkins.
You ever seen 8-year-old team get more first down? The Colts. Come on now.
So, but I mean that begs the question, though. I mean, we brought up last year, but they had something to play for last year. They were trying to punch their ticket, and it was up until the very last minute. This year, they're out. They know they're out. They're disastrously failing in the last couple of weeks in like spectacular fashion. And so I guess that's one of the things that I worry about, that I wonder about, how motivated are they to spoil the Giants season? Right.
I don't think that's it, Randy. Ryan, I don't think that's it.
Yeah.
I think they're motivated to keep their jobs.
Yeah. Okay.
That's their motivation.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you're in a not so good franchise, and your record's not so good, people are going to get fired, right?
Yeah.
And that means that means you might not be there, but that's not a bad thing that you might not be there. But what you want to do is have a job in the NFL.
Right. So put good stuff on tape.
That is, trust me, that is enough motivation to go ahead and say, look, I may not be playing here next year, but I got to put some good film out there.
That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, JC. I mean, if you've ever been a part of a team like that, where you're out, you're not going to be playing for a whole lot. I mean, even if you're playing for spoiler, it's not for your own ticket, right? How do you still maintain that motivation, and how do you still move forward and give it your all on game day? And I guess you just answered it, because know that you're going to be looking for a payout, or you're going to be trying to keep your job next year.
That's it. Kind of trying to keep a job, not that job. You don't have to be there, because that's the thing when they say it, like there's 31 other teams in the league, and that is the truth. Some guys who, I think Elijah Moore, the Jets, how he went about that whole situation, I don't think that's conducive for him to actually remain in the league. Yes, the Jets want him. Yes, the Jets, I feel like they need him to play well, right? But what if he doesn't stay on the Jets? You think other teams are going to be like, oh, hey, come here. Disregard that you were just talking crap about the last franchise you played for.
Yeah. No, come on.
You know what I mean? So it's like you don't burn bridges. You know what I mean? Like you don't do that. And when you're at this point that the Colts are at right now, and you're like, man, like I don't really know if I'm gonna be here. That's what happens. This is how I felt about my job security, right? Peyton Manning was cut.
Yeah.
He was cut.
Yeah, he was not traded. He was not traded.
He was cut.
He was cut.
Do you understand that? Do you understand my job security when I'm like running down on kickoff, not playing on defense? Do you understand my job security? When literally, and the reason why, and I said this, when he was playing, the year he got hurt and missed the entire season, he had to get the neck surgery. The Colts were the worst team in the league. You know who should have won MVP that year? Peyton Manning. Because he showed that he's the most valuable player because he wasn't playing. And the team that wins 12 games a year in the Colts, they won 12 games a year, bro.
Yeah.
They couldn't win a game. They were horrible without him.
Who was their backup that year? I remember it was somebody. I remember
Painter. It was Curtis Painter.
Oh God, Curtis Painter.
Yep, because I sacked him. That's how I remember.
That's a name I haven't even thought about in how many years. Wow.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No,
I just remember in 2017, you had guys. I remember the last game of the season against Washington, and I watched Spagnuolo hug everybody because everybody knew that there's gonna be a lot of people moving on. And I remember Devin Kennard. I said, do you think you're gonna be back next year? He said, I said, you look around this defensive side of the locker room right now. He's like, I can almost guarantee about 80% of us ain't gonna be back here next year.
Man, that's sad, man.
Like I remember,
man,
and
gonna make me cry, man.
Because Devin's a straight shooter too.
Yeah.
And Devin said to me, he's like, I love all these guys, they're my brothers, but he's like, this is the last time we're all gonna be together. And I was like, wow, like
it's an interesting thought about what this year's creating in the Giants locker room, because it makes sense to me that a lot of the guys, we're in a position where a lot of the guys would want to stay. Right. It's not a situation where you're like, this isn't for me. I'm going to head off into the sunset. But it means that a lot of the guys are going to want to stick it out, because we've shown that we can have success even under a rookie coach with a new system, right? Rolling the way that we are, especially if we're able to make the playoffs. And I guess that gives the front office some pretty good mojo to work with, to say that this is a place that people want to be. It might also help in the, in the pursuit of our new friend in Las Vegas.
Well, there's that too. And, you also look at it as when a team has a season like the Giants are having right now, when you have that type of season, it's going to attract free agents. So some of these guys, so some of these guys who are grinding it out on defense, who are playing above their expectation levels, may lose that opportunity because someone else out there who has more talent, who's going to cash in and take that job away from someone who grinded out and making very little money.
That's the game, though, man.
That's
the game.
But I'm just saying that's what's going to end up happening.
This is the thing, though. If you're healthy, and if you're, under 30, because I feel like over 30, that's a whole nother, argument. If you're under 30, the younger guys in the league, you're healthy. I'm telling you, man, if you're good enough to play in the league, you play in the league. some people, a lot of younger guys who are trying to find their way in the league, they're like, what should I do? Should I make highlight tapes and all that? I said, bro, if you're good enough, they will find you. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You know what I mean?
They're
like,
watching the tape.
they will find you. And you don't have to be drafted. You don't have to be drafted high. All you need to do is get one phone call to get invited to a training camp. And then that's on you. Then that's on you. And the Giants have a roster right now who have a $21 million receiver there who has not performed. And then you got guys like Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James, and even Sills early in the season. Guys that nobody knew none of their names in the beginning of the season, who are playing really good football right now. Look, Richie James dropped 2 passes last week, but before that, he was making very good contested catches, a really good throw over his shoulder on the sideline for a lot of yards, and he looked really good during the game.
Yep.
This is the thing about the Giants, right? And let's switch our focus to talk about this week a little bit, if that's okay with you, Randy and Ryan, because I feel like the mistakes of the Giants throughout the season came back to haunt them against the Vikings, right? No matter how Saquon played, and that run that he had was absolutely amazing on 4th and 2. Daniel Jones throwing for the yards he threw, for the efficiency that he had, and the great plays from the defense basically throughout the game came back to special teams woes, mistakes on special teams with the block punt, drops by Richie James, and Evan Neal giving up sacks. That has been the problem with the Giants this year, the big problems with the Giants this year, and they need to correct them. And of course, you can throw in other guys in those, and you throw in other names and those guys' names, but that has been issues for the Giants. Special teams have been a liability for them the entire season. Yes, they had a block punt, but the block point was only at 7 yards because it was backed up. So that was the easiest block punt the Giants have ever had in their history of the Giants, right? Since 1925. That the easiest block punt ever, right? But you take that punt block away, the Giants have been horrible on special teams. And I've been saying this all year. They have to correct it. It's the third of the game. People always talk about complementary football, offense and defense. No, it's offense and defense, special teams. Randy, answer this question. What's the first play of every NFL game?
Kickoff.
It's kickoff.
Yep.
It's kickoff.
So that's the tone.
And
I'm just saying.
And T-Mac mentioned it today when the coordinators were out there. He's like, there's no questioning it. We have to be better.
Yep.
We have to be better. And the word he used when I was reading the transcript today was, we have to be more disciplined. And we have to focus for the whole game, because he knows that a game can be decided on what the special teams do.
Often.
And it's right there. It's, you look back to the Eagles game. Yes, the score was disastrous, but you had an illegal kick, and then you also had a block punt that the Eagles almost got a first down off of.
Yeah, but they had a huge return after that too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that was a backbreaker, right? We just had some success at that point. It was a backbreaker of a return.
Yeah, and it's you just look at it.
Let me give y'all. So my two, one of my main plays of my career is the ambush onside kick recovery in the Super Bowl 44, New Orleans versus the Colts, right? That's going to go down in history, right? When I played in the Super Bowl 49, Patriots versus the Seahawks, right? I didn't play any defense. I was very upset that I didn't play defense, but that was okay for me, because when I don't play defense, there's reserve for me. Like, I don't leave anything in the tank. When I go on special teams, whoever I'm going against, they're going to get everything I got, every single play. When I was playing 75 snaps on defense and I had to run down on punt, I'm going to tell you what, I might jog a little bit. I had to go cover some guys in a 2-minute that's coming up. You know what I mean? Just being honest, right? But I sold out. There was a play in that game that I beat. I was on punt return, so it's punt block, and we had a block called. I beat the block cleanly, Randy, cleanly. And as I was going about to block a punt, he grabs the inside of my collar, and I get pulled and I fall on the ground. I get a holding call, right? But if I would have blocked that punt, the percent of us winning that game goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Through the roof, Randy. And the point I'm trying to make is the Giants don't have a guy like me, like that's going to sell out every single play on special teams. They might have one. Coughlin might be one of those guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you need at least 5 or 6 guys that are core guys that are going to sell out on at least 3 special teams. Because, you know, you got starters that you got to plug in. You know, that's safeties that you don't really expect them to really be those special teams guys, but they're reliable, so you put them there, right? But you need special team guys. Special guys that are on special teams.
Yep.
That's what you need. The Giants, they don't have a bunch of them. They might have 1, possibly 2, but teams throughout the league, like the Patriots, bro, when I got to the Patriots, I was one of the guys. Nate Ebner, Matthew Slater. And then when I came in there and they were like, oh, just play off of Slater. Play off of Slater? Oh, this is lovely. That's like saying both D tackles are going to hold up the center to the tackle. And all I got to do is run and make a tackle.
Run and make it.
When you have guys like that, that's when you become good on special teams. The Giants, because I think the shiftiness of their offense and defensive roster, they don't have those guys on special teams that are consistent and reliable, like Coach Mack said.
And what you need to have, if we're going to win with the guys that we have, it goes back to your point that you made a little earlier on, JC. If we're going to win with those guys, they have to be perfect. Right? Because of the amount of talent, because of the level of talent that we've got. If we're going to win on special teams, they have to be perfect.
And that's the thing too, is when you look at the amount of success they have and the flounders they had on special teams so far, it is amazing what they've been able to pull out thus far. JC, one of the things I have to bring up to you is I found some old media recordings that you've done. Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot. A little nervous. Well, one of the things that you said was when the Giants clinched the playoffs back in 2016, you guys were in a little bit of a different situation because you guys had as many wins as you had and behind the Cowboys. And you made a comment of we might have to root for some teams we may not want to really root for. And I don't know if you remember making that comment or not, because you guys
but it sounds good.
That sounds right. That sounds good.
So I'm listening to, I'm finding the audio. We're talking about if the Giants win and they're in. Are the Giants going to keep an eye on the scoreboard and look at what's going on behind them? Because at that point in time now, you have Green Bay all of a sudden. It's every Aaron Rodgers fan nightmares coming that he might be able to make the playoffs this year. You know, is it
not
one of those
during
things?
the game? Not during the game. You know, like look, let me tell you something. If you're in a dogfight, you're losing. You ain't looking up to see what nobody else is doing, right? If you have a comfortable lead and you look up and be like, oh man, Green Bay's losing. You know what I mean? Like you might do that, but like you cannot look anywhere outside of what's going on in MetLife if you're in a dogfight, which I expect the Giants to be in, because that's all they've been in this year is dogfights. You know, so that's my thing is like when you look at the Colts and you look what they did last week against the Chargers, it's like this is a very beatable team that the Giants could possibly blow out. But then you look at their defense and look at their special teams. And look, they scored touchdowns on defense and special teams. Not just dominate or not just control or you know, create havoc. They scored touchdowns, bro. You know, that says a lot about defense and special teams when you can do that. That's what they did against the Vikings in the first half, both defensively and special teams. They scored touchdowns. And then that's what they did early against the Chargers. They did a good job special teams wise and also defensively against them on a very potent and a firepower-full offense, right? That the offense that throws the ball 50 times a game was one of the best young throwers in the league in Justin Herbert, and they did a good job against them, right? DeForest Buckner dominated that game up front. He dominated that game, and then they got Okereke and a whole bunch of guys that I can't pronounce their last names that play really good football up front for the Colts. But they have, and I hate when people we got a call earlier on the show, and they were like, "Oh, this is a team like, oh, it's the Colts. They only got 4 wins," and it's like, bro, kid, don't you know that don't matter? Like at this point, did you see what Jacksonville is doing? Do you see what Green Bay is doing? The Houston Texans got 2 losses. I mean, excuse me, 2 wins and plays everybody tough right now.
Yeah.
It's like, do you not see this is how the league is, man? Like, it doesn't matter. These guys, they're not laying down, bro.
Yeah,
they might lay down maybe the last week when they like, all right, man, I'm just trying to get out this season healthy. You know what I mean? But look, the season's still going on. These guys from the Colts, they're getting paid millions of dollars, and they want to keep their jobs. They want to keep getting paid millions of dollars. So they're gonna give a great effort at first. If the Giants can hit them in the mouth and score points early, then they'll lay down. But if that doesn't happen, if there's not a sizable lead, this game is going to be a fight, because that's what the Giants like to get into. I don't know why they like getting into fights, but they love to get into fights for 4 quarters and sometimes 5. You know, sometimes they don't finish the fight in 5 quarters. Like, I don't know what's going on with the Giants, but if any team, if you give them an ability to stay close, they will fight you the entire game, no matter what's on the line for them.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I literally had this mental picture saying, "All right, we're just done the overtime. We can do another overtime." No, we're done.
We're done. This game's over, boy.
Yeah, I think what you just said too is the Giants have not had a game this year where they sort of went wire to wire, and the decision was already made with 5 minutes to go in the game. Giants have not really had that. Even the Texans game. That
the games that they won, no, but the games that they lost, a couple games,
a couple games,
possibly, and definitely the Eagles game.
Yeah, the Eagles game was over, the Lions game was over. Everything else they've sort of really been in, like the Cowboys game, at home, they were in it. They were in it till the end. You know, so with that being said, I feel like the Giants are sort of due for that. The Giants are sort of due to have that wire to wire win, where we can look up with 5 or 6 minutes left in the game. You can see Daniel and Saquon sitting on the bench smiling with each other, knowing that we haven't had it yet.
Yeah, but look, I don't know that we can expect that this week. Right. You know what I mean? I don't know that we can expect that this season. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know that we're built for that just yet. You know?
We'll get that OTAs next year.
Yeah, something. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, look, it's to JC's point, this is going to be an absolute battle. It's going to be an absolute dogfight. And it's because they're playing for different things. Of course, the Giants are playing for a playoff berth. The Colts are playing for their jobs, right? They're playing for their professional lives, right? Some of the guys on that roster are kind of barely on that roster, and they're definitely going to want to put up some good tape, stuff like that. So, you know, I'm convinced, and this is something that I thought about years and years and years ago when I first started watching the Giants play. I think it's a decision made from the front office that we can't go wire to wire because they're trying to give me a heart attack. They're trying to kill me, and they do it every year. They do it every goddamn year, and they haven't done it yet. And so, you know, I think that's probably what's going on here. But
I just picture Mr. Mara, Mr. Tisch going, "What's up with Darlington? Still alive?
How's his blood pressure looking?
How's he doing? All right, we're gonna have 8 games this year going down to the wire, winning and losing by 1 to 2 points. If that doesn't kill him,
a bucket of fried chicken.
Yeah. If he's not dead by the end of the season, we need a new strategy. All right. Before we get to predictions, story time with JC. JC, I'm not going to set the table. I'm going to let you pick one. I guess it's clinching week. It's clinching week. So if you have a clinching story for us.
A football clinching story, please.
Football clinching. Say, what clinching story are we talking about?
Oh, we don't need to talk about her.
How about
we
this?
Don't need to talk about.
Listen, no, don't take it back now.
You open the door. Here we go.
All right, listen.
Buckle up, kids.
This is a clinching story, and we're not talking about playoffs. So, I was in college, right? I was playing for University of Wisconsin. We were playing against Minnesota, which is a big rivalry game.
Yeah, right. That's a big
College
game.
football, big rivalry game. Play for the Paul Bunyan Axe. When I was there, we won it every time. The Badgers just lost it not too long ago, but we kind of have their number. Whatever, right? So I hit a guy, tackle a guy. At the same time, simultaneously, I farted. Same time, but it was more like a shark. Y'all know what a shark
right.
is?
A little extra. Sure.
At least that's what it felt like to me, right?
Yeah, little dribble.
Wisconsin, we wear white pants.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And we're like in the second quarter, maybe early in the second quarter, right? And I believe I just sharted on myself on national television. Right? So I come to the sideline and I'm like this. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I got gloves on. I got wrist tape. I can't take them off. So I'm sticking my gloves in my crotch, trying to get underneath. And I'm
just
like,
to see what's there. Just to see how
I'm
bad
like
it is.
smelling. I'm like looking, I'm smelling. I look around. I'm like, I bend over to look between my crotch. Like,
that's right. Somebody help me out.
And I'm not talking to nobody. Like, I'm sitting down. They all like, JC, you good? I'm like,
yeah, I'm good.
I don't even know what's going on the football field anymore. My mind is totally thinking I got a shit stain down the back
all
of
the way
my
down.
Yeah. So I did a whole bunch of things to try to check, right? But I didn't have validation. I didn't know. Couldn't confirm it. So then halftime, I was spraying the locker room.
Right down. Mirrors.
Go right in the
please.
bathroom, drop my trousers, and I'm looking like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. There was nothing there. But bro, let me tell you something. The dread that I had.
Listen.
Like, I couldn't tell nobody. Nobody knew that happened. I was all in by myself. I felt like I was just literally by myself out there.
You were on an island, man. You were on your own island.
There are moments in life when your faith in the Lord just comes right through you. It's okay, maybe. All right, big guy. Maybe you are out there. Thanks, man.
I literally just have the mental picture of people going over you going, hey, JC, and you, instead of you giving high fives, you go, that's right, man. Hey, woo.
Hey, JC, give me a hug. Oh, no.
Not even a fist bump. I'll give you
right.
later.
That's been down my pants.
I'll give you two. I'll give you two later. We'll just
because both of my gloves been in my balls, going to my.
And not only that, but while you're telling this story, my head is sitting there going, man, just imagine what the announcers would be saying if that happened. I've noticed that Casillas, there's a little something going on in his face. Well, let's go to our sideline. Let's go to our sideline reporter for an update on that.
Yeah.
Is there any part of the field that's brown in the paint?
All right. With that being said, let's go prediction time.
I love story time.
I love story time with JC. It's like it is my favorite part of the show, by the way. So let's go to prediction time here. Colts Giants this upcoming Sunday, MetLife Stadium. JC, what do you see? What's the numbers? What do you got?
Look, I would love the Giants to score 30 points. I feel like against this team, that probably won't happen if they don't score defensively, right? Because the Colts defense is very good, in terms of, they'll fight you as long as they're in the game, and with that being said, I think they're going to be able to do a decent job for at least 3 quarters against the Giants and keep them at a low score, possibly in single digits, because this Colts defense, do not sleep on the defense. That offense can't do nothing for you. Don't sleep on the defense. They're just, if the Colts offense come to play, this is going to be a lot more difficult game than we've ever imagined. if they come to play it all this year. Horrible. And even against the game against the Vikings, they didn't score no point, or they scored 3 points in the second half. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they lit it up, but it was defense, it's special teams, short offense than anything. With all that being said, I think it's going to be a closer game than people would probably want to, right? But I think the Giants, with Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Williams, I know Aziz might be out this week, Kayvon Thibodeau, and all those guys, Sterling Shepard not dressed on the sideline, being a cheerleader, I think they have enough to secure their first playoff berth since 2016 at home. Let's go with the 20. I want to go 24-27, but I feel like I always pick those two numbers. Let's go 26. I don't even know how you can get 26, Ryan. I'm just going to go 20.
We'll make it. We'll figure it out.
We'll go 26.
We'll make it work.
A couple of Graham get no field goals in there for sure.
Yeah.
To 24. Close game. 26-24. Close game. The Colts, hopefully they don't, but they possibly score on defense. Hopefully, like I said, not, because that increased their chances of winning very much so. I just don't know about their offense, but if they figure out a way to, actually do something, I think they might be able to score into the 20s, and the Giants will win this game.
Ryan, go for it, brother.
Yeah. I think one way or the other, I think defense is going to win this game, whether it's the Colts defense shutting us down and possibly scoring some points, or the Giants defense taking advantage of a horrid offense and maybe scoring some points on that front as well. I do think it's going to be a closer game than I want it to be, a closer game than maybe I thought it would be a couple of weeks ago. I'm not going to go 26-24. I think it's the right kind of spread, but I think it's going to be lower scoring than that. I'm going to go 20-17. I think the Giants do clinch. I think they're playing for a lot. I think they're playing well with what they've got. I think that we have an opportunity to make things happen, and I think that's going to be what goes on Sunday.
From my perspective, I do think it's going to be a close game. The defense of the Colts has been their saving grace this season for them, especially over the last couple of weeks. I'm looking at the Giants defense too. Xavier McKinney is going to be back in the lineup this week as well. They're starting to get a little bit more healthy.
Is he?
He's been practicing. We're gonna get a confirmation. I got the injury report today, showed that he practiced.
Yeah.
All right, there, JPP.
Hey, listen, JPP played. Okay.
Yeah, with a club.
He blew his hand off in July. He played that year. Okay. He literally lost fingers, Randy.
Yep. That was the joke. It was there was a sale on JPP's gloves, 20% off.
Yeah. Oh man.
I would close my computer that one.
When he wore that club, I kept on saying JPP smash in the in the press box. We're like JPP smash the whole time.
Gosh.
But so with that being said, though, Giants are starting to get healthy. But I do agree with you guys. It's gonna be a lot closer than everyone thinks. I don't think they break 20. To be honest with you, I think it's gonna be a 17-14 game, and I think.
That sounds better. Your two, Ryan, sounds a lot better than mine. When I said that, I'm kind of hopeful, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I did that a couple weeks ago, too. I said I gave a number. I'm like, how the hell are we mathematically going to get to that number? I remember saying it in the press box, too. I'm looking at those guys. I'm like, yeah, I picked this number. And they're like, really? I'm like, now that I'm thinking about it, how the fuck are we going to get to that number? Excuse my language. But like, my Lord, it just doesn't work. All right. Hey, guys, don't forget to check out JC on the pregame show with Lance Meadow. The last few weeks I've been listening, and my wife and I were in the car listening before the Vikings game. And the first thing she says is, she's like, wow, JC sounds a lot smarter than you do. And you usually sound pretty intelligent. I said, and I said, listen, babe, There's a lot more intelligent people than I am.
Look,
Okay?
I'm just saying, I did play 17 years of football and 9
You know,
years
there's
I
that.
played football.
You,
I didn't just talk about
Smarter,
football and watch it. I
better
played
looking,
it.
yeah,
he's more in shape.
yeah, exactly. Better looking guy. You know, he walks around with a little bit more swag. You know,
a
we
little
got,
BDE.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. He's in good condition. The only shape I'm in is round.
Round. That's a shape. Hey, that's a shape.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right?
It's a roundish.
I'm
It
not
is
hearing
a
anybody
shape.
talk shit about
Yeah.
that.
Ryan is a shape. It's a shape.
Listen, he's got
Listen. People can have a 6-pack, or you can get a keg.
I got a keg,
baby.
I got
I'm
the
ready
keg
to
right
go.
here.
Tap it up. Ready to rock.
But with that being said, though, check out JC and Lance Meadow and Paul Patino and the rest of the crew for pre-games. I love the roundtable that you guys did last week too. You know, you guys really conquer it. I know if you can catch Paul Patino being wrong, you absolutely love it, because it's like almost like a challenge now on a weekly basis, because he's so damn smart.
Let
and
me
it's
tell you
like,
something. I
Yeah.
love Paul. You know, me and him watch the first half together every week, and I love how he sees the game and what he says about every play, and he knows everybody on that team.
Yeah.
He knows their numbers. He knows what college they went to. So I want to give my little flowers to Paul Patino right now. Look, I've been very impressed by Paul Patino. I do a lot of segments with him, you know, and for me, it's like, you know, I had to be prepared to do this show, but this is Thursday night. I've been prepared for this show. You know, like I got to do the Dayball show on Tuesday, so I got to be prepared for that show. And you know, and you know, y'all know how the week goes. Games on Sunday, you know, you reflect on the game on Monday. Tuesday, you're still trying to get over the game, and then you start looking towards the next opponent. That's how the NFL is, right? So by Thursday, I already know the Colts by Thursday, you know, but the hard part about it is figuring out them on Tuesday or
Yeah.
earlier in the week. You know, so for me, I've learned from Paul. I've learned from you, Randy. I've learned from everybody, Ryan. I learned from guys and how they prepare and how they talk. And I work with Sean O'Hara. Sean O'Hara is look, I was so impressed by him working with him, you know, and even David Deal. I did work with David Deal in years.
David's amazing.
So first off, I want to thank you guys for, you know, letting me be a part of this. You know, I know look, I've played football for X amount of years and I had my success, but you know, stepping to this side, it's not as easy as people, you know, maybe might think. You know, you got to do research. You have to study. You know, you have to remember. You have to remember things. You have to, you know, you do have to, you know, say stuff that's important and actually intellectual and keep conversations going. You know, insightful. So, you know, for me, it's like I love this is a challenge. I love challenges. You know, so for me, I embraced it. And I hope we're giving a good product out there, you know, and I hope, you know, not just with this, but anything that I'm doing, I'm giving a good product out there. And, you know, I study, you know, and I'm cramming and I'm trying to learn people's names and how to pronounce them. You know, I never had to do that before, Randy. I never had to know who number 56 name was. You know, so I'm learning and, you know, I tip my hat off to you guys because you guys been in this, Randy. We met a long time ago. You know, I know you've been doing this for a long time, so tip my hat to you and anybody that I have worked with on this side of football, because this is a new thing for me and this is a learning curve for me. And I appreciate the guidance and the help that you've provided for me, you know, throughout this time.
I appreciate that. And what's funny thing is you started mentioning, you know, there's, you know, intelligent and smart like that. I'm like, who the hell is he talking about? It ain't me and Ryan.
I'm just some schlub that likes football. Yeah.
I took a wrong turn. I was supposed to be doing an NBA podcast. I ended up with you guys. So with that being said, no, awesome. Listen, JC, this has been seriously one of the most fun things that I've been able to do. Right, and Ryan and I can tell you, like, we'll talk a couple times on the phone during the week, and we'll just like, we can't wait to bring this up, or you know, what we gonna talk there, and we'll send a text during the game, and sometimes he's either ahead of me or in front of me, and with what we're watching, and he's like, I can't wait to hear JC's reaction to this, and like, you know, it's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. And look, this at the end of the day, this is three guys who absolutely love the game of football, right? We love the game of football, talking about it, giving our 2 cents on the whole thing. And JC, you bring an amazing perspective to this. Randy, you bring a level of professionalism to the show that I think is fantastic. But it's
we're
just
screwed.
a few guys. But it's just a few guys having fun talking about ball.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's been an honor to do the show with you guys, and I look forward to more.
Well, I've always compared it to, there's a lot of other football podcasts where people always give stats and there's a certain way of talking about the game.
Analysis.
Yeah, but I've always felt like you have to be entertaining and you want to have it where you're tuning in and you want to hear it's almost like listening to your buddies talk about the game. And we'll throw the inside information in there too to validate what we're saying. But it's also, you want to be able to make it that you feel like it's, I use the comparison to Entourage, the TV show Entourage. When you watch Entourage, you every single time a new season came around, it was, you want to catch up and see what your buddies were doing, and you want to see the adventures that your friends are going on. And that's what I try always, not just this podcast, but every podcast I do, I want to make sure it's one thing to give information, it's another thing to be entertaining while giving the information. And I think that's always been my mentality.
And listen, it's no miss when you're talking about sharding on the field. So we're absolutely we're solid for this week at the very least.
And Ryan has that experience because he did that last week. So,
jeez, I didn't think I told you about that.
No secret is safe on this show. All right, guys. So for JC, for Ryan, I'm Randy Zellea from Back Sports Page. We'll see you next week, hopefully with a clinching win.
Hopefully,
with the Big Blue Report covering the New York Football Giants. We'll see you guys next week.